Hundreds of millions of people tuned in to watch a social media influencer boxing match. And it took a 58-year-old man in a thong to bring in all those eyes. How's that for cold open? Hi, this is Cody Engdahl. I am the author. I'm the author of 5 novels, historical novels. Number 6 is on its way. 2 nonfiction works. And so welcome to my channel. Please like and subscribe and all those automatic things I'm supposed to do as a YouTuber. Yeah, I'm not trying to be like too cool for school. I'm building this channel. I'm happy to have you. So welcome aboard. And I really enjoy doing this. And I'm trying to, I mean, first of all, the end result or the end goal of everything is to build up, market my books and build up a readership. And part of that is kind of expanding my social media or footprint, as it were, I guess. Being an independent, you don't have, well, I'll tell you, even the commercially published people, they don't get a whole lot of support from the big publishers to market their books. So you got to do a lot of the footwork, but also I really love doing it. And what I'm trying to say is that um, I do this for marketing purposes, but I also like coming out here and talking about some of these things. And um, I do this in multiple forms. I'm on different platforms, and you may follow me on those, like Facebook or Twitter and all that. But I have a blog post as well. And what I'm getting at is, so we watched the fight, Laura and I. I watched the fight. Laura tolerated the fight. Actually, she didn't watch the Tyson fight at all because she was out cold by the time we finally got to the title fight. But I woke up the next morning. We had to get up early, or what was it? Yeah, it was Friday night, wasn't it? Yeah. So Laura had to get up early because there's a convention that her lab is hosting at Vanderbilt University, and they got people, biologists from all over the world, flying into Nashville to talk about frogs and fungus. And because it's her lab that's putting it on, she's got to be there super early in the morning. So poor Laura, while she's putting on her makeup and trying to get as much coffee in her as possible before she has to go, I'm sitting there talking about all these ideas, and then she left. And it's funny, whenever I have something I have to do that uh, I don't want to do, or it's not that I don't want to do, it's like hanging over me. Like I'm in the third round of a job where I have to uh, do a bunch of tasks, I guess. And that was my job for yesterday to get done. But instead, I had all these thoughts about my reaction to what I saw in that Tyson fight. And so instead of getting to what I needed to do, I sat down for 3 hours and I wrote and edited and published an article on my blog post. And I'm glad I did that. It's something I want to get back to doing because I really do enjoy kind of the longer format posting like that. And so also I've noticed that some of the other YouTube channels that I follow, um, like there's a guy that I follow that he has a Substack, but it's the same thing. I have WordPress, but he'll write an article and then he'll use his article the his live streams or to do his videos. 10-minute video format is the short format, the shorter format of videos. I like don't going live because I don't like. Uh, I think I'm better off the cuff than scripted. I don't know, but a way to kind of like feed to let both of the things feed into each other. And by the way, if you're interested in the article, the link to it is down below. So uh, I got done watching this, and I thought about it. A lot of people know who Jake Paul is. I didn't know who he was a whole lot because I'm not really that tuned into like internet culture, but apparently he is I guess a social media influencer, and so is his brother, Logan Paul. I think Logan Paul is the one who infamously live streamed finding a dead body in the woods and got himself in trouble. But a lot of these people, especially when they don't really have something that they do, I mean, some people have YouTube channels or social media presence because they do something. You know, like me, I write novels, and that's what I talk about. Guys like that are famous just for the sake of being famous, and a lot of their stuff are stunts and antics, and a little bit of shock jock stuff, and so I'll have to say that I would never have been interested in Jake Paul or anything he has to do or say, but I am a lifetime fan of Mike Tyson, and just to give a little history. So, you know, Mac when Mike Tyson became heavyweight champion when I was in high school, and he was the like every time Mike Tyson had a fight, it was like the Super Bowl. It would be pay per view. Um, there would be house parties where we'd all pitch in for the pay per view, and there'd be beer and weed and beautiful girls and raging party guys, and we'd go there and we'd watch all the undercard fights, and we would make predictions and bet usually a dollar or two, and then the big Tyson. And I just remember the excitement building up for the big event. And because of that, I became a boxing fan. I've always liked martial arts. I became a boxing fan. I started watching a lot of boxing. I watched a lot of older boxing too. I'm a big fan of Marvin Hagler, who was I think middleweight champion for a while when I was younger. And I even boxed myself at the Johnson Rec Center in Detroit. I never fought an actual bout, but I helped a guy train for his fight because he was fighting a southpaw. And even though I'm right-handed, when I box, I naturally box southpaw, which means I lead with my right. I mean, orthodox fighting is you lead with you jab with your left, and then your right is your power. Well, I have it backwards, and I didn't even realize I was doing it because the first time I learned how to box, I was living in Hungary, and I was boxing at a gym where nobody spoke English, but they worked with me because you don't have to share a language to teach the finer parts of boxing, and no one told me that I was boxing backwards. I think the reason why is my first martial art was fencing, and so being right-handed, I would hold my foil, then later the saber with my right hand, right? Because that's the hand, my dominant hand, and that's the hand that has the weapon in it. So it was just natural for me that when I boxed, and actually when I fought, I sparred a lot in Taekwondo before that. I just always felt more natural to lead with my right hand, and then Taekwondo, my right foot. So I didn't realize I was doing it backwards when I got into boxing. And it's really funny because being a southpaw, I'm way off course here with what I'm trying to say, but I'll just say this: being a southpaw, it gives you an advantage over people who would otherwise be better boxers than you. And what is this? Oh, that's my um, because other people are used to fighting someone who have a similar stance that they do. They're jabbing with their left and crossing with their right. They're not used to seeing a mirror image, and it throws off their timing. It throws off everything they've trained for. Whereas a southpaw, I'm always training to fight someone who fights orthodox. So I'm used to fighting a mirror image. They're not. The other thing is that if you develop a good right hook, uh, they're suckers for it, and you can walk them right into it because basically, as a southpaw, I'm always walking around their guard and coming up over their lead hand, and they're constantly walking into my hook. So it is a little bit of a trick. So when I was boxing in Detroit, there was a guy. He was the only other white guy in the gym, and you would think that he would like me, but the guy hated my guts. But when he was fighting, it was a second bout with another southpaw, and so he asked me if I would train with him for the week up to it, so he could get used to sparring with someone with the right that was southpaw. First night we went 3 rounds, and he broke my jaw and or fractured it. And it's still like to this day, like if this takes a hit, it'll go right out. So Brian Riley says, let's see, show. There we go. Younger viewers don't understand how dangerous Iron Mike was in his prime. Absolutely. And And I'll say this. So I watched the fight. Yes, like many others, I was frustrated with the buffering. I thought it was my computer, and then I thought it was our Wi-Fi because my computer has problems, and then Laura's Wi-Fi goes out a lot. But then I started seeing that other people have that problem too. That's because hundreds of million people were seeing, this legend, pulled out of his wheelchair and up. So that some loudmouth uh, attention whore could say he fought a legend. Now, I would say that Jake Paul was very respectful of him, and there are accusations that the fight was fixed, that Jake went easy on him and just led him around, like because you could tell, you can tell that Tyson, and this was even true in Tyson's prime. I said back then, I said now that Tyson needs to knock you out in the first 3 rounds. If he can't do that, he's in trouble because Tyson isn't built for endurance. He's built for power, and that power is there for about 3 rounds. And if he doesn't get you in 3 rounds, one of the reasons why is Tyson. A lot of people don't know this. Tyson is the smallest heavyweight champion, I believe, on record. He's 5'10", and during his prime, he was actually not a heavyweight. He was a cruiserweight, but there was no money in the cruiserweight division, so he would fight above his weight class because that's where the money was. And so everybody he fought had a height advantage and a reach advantage. And reach advantage is huge in boxing. That means, well, it's kind of like I talk about that even in, like, I write 19th century military stuff. And I'm writing about the Franco-Prussian War. Well, the French still had muzzle-loading brass cannons where the Prussians and their German allies were shooting breech-loading rifled steel cannons that had a much further range, so and better accuracy too. So the Prussians could destroy French batteries, and the French batteries couldn't fire back, couldn't hit them because the Prussians could set up out of range of the French and destroy them with impunity. And if you saw the Lennox Lewis fight, I mean, that guy had like 7-foot arms, man. That guy had some arms on him, and that's one of the reasons why that he won that fight, because Lennox Lewis could just sit back and throw long distance artillery, and Mike all he could do was try to cover and get underneath it. Now, Mike used to be really good at that in his early stage. What a lot of people don't understand about Mike Tyson is he's not a street thug. I mean, he might be or might have been one, but he was trained properly in the sweet science of boxing and actually brought back classical boxing, where a lot of guys have devolved into this kind of like, cool guy, street fighter, dropping your guard, dancing around and all that kind of stuff. Mike, because everybody's got a longer reach than him, had to learn how to cover. And basically what he has to do is get up underneath. It's just like the Prussians had to do with the not the cannons, but the French had longer range rifles. Get underneath the range of those rifles and then come up with that classic Tyson uppercut that just lights fucking out every time it lands. So I'm a Mike Tyson fan. And yes, Mike is a controversial person. He's a man on a path. He's flawed, but I love the humanity in him. And when the match was over, I was happy to see that Jake Paul gave him respect and showed respect to him, and the two of them were very kind to each other, and that made me feel good because I like good sportsmanship. But I felt kind of sad, and it felt wrong, and it felt like Mike Tyson got used so that a social influencer could get the maximum in views. And so so the next morning, Laura got up. We got up at 5. I made her coffee, helped her get out the door. I was supposed to sit down and work on these tasks to get this job, and just so you know, I got it done today. They wanted it by Monday morning. Um, and but I had all these ideas in my head, sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write this article, and I'm glad I did. And then today I got done with all the stuff, like, for example, the thing I had to, the task I had to complete for the job opportunity. That's all done. I also had a magazine that wanted me to do an interview, a written interview. I already answered everything, but I had to go over my answers, make sure that was fine. That's done. The current job I have right now, I have an appointment at 2 o'clock. I got to do. So long story short, I have time. So I decided, okay, this is a good time for me to get on and talk about my article and my thoughts on this. So here we go. This is my article here. Let me switch over. All right, there's me. And these are some of the examples I'm going to use in this article. But the name of my article is "There Are No Stars Today, Just Ghosts of Our Past." One more thing before we get started. There's something wrong with my mouth, my throat. I had an MRI Wednesday, and tomorrow I'm going to see the doctor, see what it is. Hopefully it's not what I think it might be. But long story short, it's hard for me to speak. And so I slur my speech a lot because my tongue is swollen, and it's hard for me to talk around this swollen thing that's choking me to death. Okay. I got really excited about seeing Mike Tyson fight again. He was unbeatable when I was a teen and an early adult. Some of my favorite memories were going to parties and watching the fights on pay-per-view. So I was filled with nostalgia at the chance to see Iron Mike Tyson put on his gloves one last time and take down some loudmouth social media influencer. Laura and I made drinks and cooked dinner while the undercard matches streamed on my laptop on the kitchen counter. Poor Laura never made it to the women's bout, which may have been the best of the night. I lay in bed next to her with my headphones on, trying to stay awake long enough to see Tyson fight. In fact, I actually dozed off a couple times before the fight started. As I said back in the 90s, Tyson has to knock you out in the first 3 rounds or he's in trouble. By the 3rd round, he was in trouble. Still, the old champion went the full 8 2-minute rounds with the young upstart who was 31 years his junior. To his credit, in the last seconds, Jake Paul brought his hands together and bowed to the legend before him, a gesture of great respect. They hugged and said encouraging things to each other as everyone filed into the ring. I didn't need to wait to see the decision, but I did so anyway. Paul won by unanimous decision, beating one of the greatest athletes of all time. I went to bed with a bad feeling in my stomach. It felt like vandalism. It was like one of those protesters throwing tomato soup on a famous painting at the Louvre just to get attention. In Paul's defense, he is a showman who has built his fame on the internet with spectacle. Getting an aging heavyweight champion to come out of retirement to fight him was a feat in itself. It's my understanding that Paul was behind organizing the whole event, which was so successful that Netflix had outages due to the sheer number of watchers worldwide streaming the event live at the same time. But why was it successful? Jake Paul is a known name for sure, but certainly could never pull such numbers. He needed a legend like Mike Tyson to bring hundreds of millions of eyeballs to this event. There simply isn't any young contemporary boxer who could have instead. Personally, I couldn't even tell you who is the current heavyweight champion is without Googling it. This made me think about all the derivative reboots, remakes, and sequels Hollywood spits out year after year. Most of them fail because they are never the same as the originals for those of us who were fans, and the younger generations don't care about what was popular in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's only when you bring out an aging legendary movie star like Tom Cruise that you get a banger like Top Gun. Tom Gun Maverick. I gotta fix that typo. Whoops. But even that couldn't save a movie like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, where we got to see an octogenarian Harrison Ford be lectured about his white male privilege for 2 hours by some millennial or something. I don't know. I didn't see it. It looked too sad to me. It looked too sad to watch for me. I should fix that too. But the reason they dragged Ford out to reprise one of his iconic roles again was because it was the only chance such an expensive movie could recoup its costs. They certainly weren't going to fill the seats with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, just as Jake Paul couldn't fill AT&T Stadium himself. They needed the old legends to do that. But who are the stars who will take their place? Who in 20 or 30 years will have to come out of retirement to prop up some young upstart? Anybody? There aren't any. That's okay. In the early days of mass media, it was easy to stand up. There was radio for music, TV for short form narratives, the movie theaters for big budget films. Video games were poor representations of what was popular back then. Just ask anyone who ever played Atari's ET, the extraterrestrial video game. In these narrow lanes of entertainment, a singer, athlete, or actor could make a name for themselves. But entertainment has splintered into thousands of rivulets of interest. The Beatles were big because rock and roll was one conduit of popular music. Now it's scattered into into an endless tree of subgenres within subgenres. Just look at how many styles of heavy metal there are today: death metal, doom metal, new metal, baby metal. Technology and social media have driven this bifurcation. Okay, that's a big word. I don't know why I write that in there. Um, no longer do you have to settle for what everyone else likes. You can go down rabbit holes and find exactly what you like in music, novels, video games, movies, shows, or whatever else you like to delve into for escapism. Not only that, but you can create your own content and compete with the big corporate entertainment companies. Jake Paul himself was just a regular guy who posted his antics on YouTube and became famous enough to challenge Mike Tyson to a fight. There are independent YouTubers who get more views complaining about streaming shows than the shows themselves. How? It's because they're able to find their audiences and cater to them without spending the money the Hollywood studios have to put out. The truth is that big corporate media can barely compete with us as independents. Their overhead is so high that they have to hit absolute home runs with mass global appeal or lose hundreds of millions of dollars. If you didn't know, I'm an independent historical novelist. I always say that if you want to be published by one of the big publishing houses, you better write about Romans, Vikings, or Nazis because those subgenres of historical fiction are the biggest sellers. To pay their staffs or for the office buildings, they have to make millions before they can pay their authors thousands. But as an independent, I can write 19th century historical military novels that serve a niche audience and still have success because it's just me I have to pay for. The independents can be nimble and take risks that the cumbersome media giants can't afford. This is why they continue to spit out reboots, remakes, sequels, because they think those are sure bets. But there's a risk in not taking risks, stagnation, and audience apathy, which eventually drives them into the arms of the independents like me. And then here's my plug. Check out my latest novel about the Austro-Prussian War. I guarantee you will not find anything like it from the big corporate publishers. So coming back here, checking in on you guys. So for me, like a lot of people, maybe less than I realized, because I also know that I do follow quite a bit of internet culture. Yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't watch Jake Paul, but I'm aware of influencers and people like him. So he is popular and famous for online, but someone like him wouldn't be able to get. I mean, no one was tuning in to see Jake Paul. They were tuning in to see Mike Tyson. And I think it's the same when we look at the movies. Like, when I talked about Indiana Jones, everybody who went, I didn't see it. I wasn't interested enough, and I already had my reservations about it. And then the more I heard about it, the more I was like, I don't want to see it. I want to remember Indiana Jones, like even the Crystal Skull. A lot of people didn't like that movie. It didn't bother me, and I like that they 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 got him back to Marion. I thought that was nice. Um, it wasn't as good as the others. I know that people have their favorites. Theirs is what's the one about the Holy Grail. I always think that you never. It's hard to get when it comes to movies. Books can get better. But a lot of times, I feel like it's hard to do a good sequel. It's hard to get back to the magic of the original one. So anyway, long story short, the only reason why anybody went to go see um, Phoebe Waller-Cates drive around in a one of those little Indian taxi cars was because Harrison Ford was in, and that's what everybody wanted to see. The reason why everybody went to see The Force Awakens was they wanted to see Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford together once again, which they never gave it a shot. But that's the negative end of it. I'm always looking on the bright side. I'm always looking at a way to work for myself. Is that what I am seeing, and I've heard other people talk about this as well. Is it's not so much is that uh, a decline in movies, maybe on the big screen and things like that, but there's a decline, there's a splintering of entertainment because and no longer, or it's very difficult for like a single movie star, author, filmmaker, musician to capture the a wide appeal. And unfortunately, for the big corporate entertainment companies, to recoup their costs because they spend hundreds of millions of dollars of doing things, they have to have home runs. They're not able to take risks. They have to do cookie cutter things. They have to go sure bets, whether it's the recording agencies, I mean, the recording studios that, all the pop stars may sound the same. Um, it's because they have to go with what is tried and true and not deviate from that course. But what this has done is create a golden age of the independent creator, so that even though you go to the grocery store and none of the books look like anything you want to read because they're written for the biggest, most voracious uh, consumers of books, there are books out there for you, and there is content out there for you. The only difference is now you have to look for it because it's not in the mainstream. There are some things out there for sure, but if you look at it, all they do, like when it comes to movies, is just remake what has already been made and to try to pull some money out of it one last time. So anyway, I think that's all I have to say on this. I'm going to try to get back on the schedule of doing at least once a week. I know I've done one just a few days ago, and I wanted to do this today because it was fresh in my mind, um, and I figured, well, if I have something to talk about, there's no reason to wait. So anyway, if you're a writer, keep writing. If you are a writer, write down in the comments what you're writing. I'd like to know about it. If you're a reader, what are you reading right now? And if you are a reader and you have an author out there that you love and you want to encourage them to write more, get on Amazon and Goodreads, give them 5 stars, write a couple lines about what you liked about the book. It could just be really liked it, couldn't put it down, bam, you're done. That'll help them out, help them out very much. I just myself, Rampage on the River was my first novel, just crossed over to 100 ratings. It's sitting at 4 stars. I'd like to get that up a little bit. But I got my 100th rating and a review to go with it. So that's fantastic. As far as what's going on with me, I started writing part 5 of my novel, The French Fiasco, and it's coming along great. Last week was a really great, consistent week of writing. I have found, um, and not everything works for everybody, but a couple things. Try to write almost every day. That's one thing, and the other is pick a time and to write that works for you. Now, for me, it is first thing in the morning, and I have learned that what is best is I get up at 5, and before I look at on YouTube, before I look on social media to see if I got any likes or shares, and before I look at emails or anything, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever that stuff is, can wait a couple hours. I get my coffee. I usually get like 5 prunes and put them on a plate to snack on. Get in my writer's chair, and I set a timer for an hour and a half. And I forgot what this method is called, but it's when you work for yourself, you have to kind of build your own discipline. So I I learned this in a Japanese novel, and what the novel wasn't about this. It's just that the main character used this technique. I work for an hour and a half. When the timer goes off, then I take a 20-minute break, and then an hour and a half again. And usually so for me, uh, I get up in the 5 o'clock hour. I try to make sure that I get into my writer's chair and I start writing before 6 o'clock. When the alarm goes off, then I make myself breakfast, and then I start listening to other people's YouTube videos. I like to listen to. I don't even own a TV. I listen to YouTube videos mostly for that kind of like mindless entertainment. Uh, and then once I get done with breakfast, then I go back to writing, or sometimes just business tasks, especially if I hit my word count for the day. And checking on my social media, but also like working on, I'm running ads all the time. So I'm not only writing novels, but I'm also my own ad agency, my own marketing department. So working on a lot of those tasks, and then Laura usually calls me somewhere in the 8 o'clock hour, and I use that. We talk while she drives to work, so I use that to go out and get my 20-minute walk, which I do every day to stay in shape, plus push-ups, sit-ups, and squats and all that. And then once I get back from that, then it's whatever I have on my list to do that day. Sometimes it's more writing. I work a side hustle to make the keep me while I'm writing. I work for a research company. It's basically a federally funded study. We're seeing how the effects of environment, uh, how that affects single mothers and their children. So I book interviews with them, and then I go to their house and I interview them and the kids, and I take the biometrics, height, weight, waist, um, blood pressure. I do the finger prick with them to test for diabetes, and then this is all collected by the federal government, and they're looking. It's a program in which they give housing vouchers to single parents where their kids are growing up in bad neighborhoods. They want to get those kids in the good neighborhoods. So those parent, may be a lost cause, but that kid could grow up to be somebody. So we want to make sure that we're helping those diamonds in the rough, but it's not the kid's fault. So we want to get those kids in good school. We want to make sure they're eating right. Um, and they're living in a safe environment. So that's what I do on the side to kind of help pay for my writing addiction. But the French Fiasco, we're over. We're it was about 85,000. I could look that up. But on the last count, and I know I've written some before that. I think I'm around 85,000 words. I want it to be at 80, but it's going to be longer than that. So hopefully now I can bring this in under 100,000 words. Get it to come up. I have a French Fiasco. Come on, computer does not. There we go. Yeah, we're about 83,000 words into it right now. So hopefully I get under 100,000. I feel like the end of a book just like a movie, the pace should pick up quite a bit. So part five, without rushing it, I want the scenes to happen faster. And basically I have all the characters on the chessboard and just creating a vortex. Usually my chapter is about 3,000 words. I'm writing chapters that are under 2,000 to make them tighter and quicker. Then moving around as all the characters are swirling in the vortex that's going to come to the ultimate conclusion. And this is a conclusion that I had in mind when I wrote my first book, Rampage on the River. So this is 6 books to get to this point. So I'm very excited about it. And then hopefully I'll get that done by the end of the year. And then I want to have the books printed so that I can take them to an event in the beginning of March. That's kind of my goal right now. So more on that. We'll if you're by the way, join my email list. It's in the description. I will send you updates about when the Kindle books are on sale, when the pre-order is live, when the book comes out, and if I'm going to be somewhere signing books, I'll also put that in there. And on that note, Rampage on the River, the Kindle version is going to be 99 cents in the US starting Tuesday for a week, and then it's going to be 99 pence in the UK. And then we're going to cycle through all of them. The only one that doesn't go on sale is The Prussian Prince. But once the French Fiasco starts its pre-order, The Prussian Prince is going to come down from $4.99 to $3.99. But we're also going to run a special on it, 99 cents for 7 days. So that's what's happening there. I'm going to Detroit to see my mother and my sisters, 2 of my sisters, and their children and all that for Thanksgiving. I'm writing a novella that is going to be free and exclusive to the email list. So if you join my email list, you're going to get it. You're going to get this novel or novella. I'm thinking about 20 to 40,000 words. So like if I'm a full novel, my ideal full novel is 80,000. This is about half of that. It's going to be a story about Chester E. Newman, who, if you read the trilogy, you'll know who that is. And basically, it's the events that lead up to where we start on Rampage on the River. So Mexico, My Love is a prequel, but Mexico, My Love is basically how Claudette goes from Marseille, France, and ends up by the end of the book, she's in place where we find her in Rampage on the River, but Carl's still just a toddler by the time she gets to Detroit. This is like the very night before or the few days before the events of Rampage on the River. And it'll have a lot to do with the Underground Railroad, which is a system of people that helped enslaved people escape the plantations and get to safety in Canada. And Detroit was absolutely a terminus. In fact, there is a bronze statue right in the Detroit River of an enslaved family pointing across the river, because if you could get to British Canada, you were free. But because of the Fugitive Slave Act, if you got caught in the northern states by federal law, they had to return you back to the plantations down in the South. So this story is going to be about that. It's going to be about Captain Chester E. Newman as he tries to build a company for the 2nd Michigan Cavalry. And it's going to be fun. And it's going to have Carl's going to be in it, and his infamous kiss with Anna, and which starts the animus between him and Klaus. So stay tuned for that. And then, but anyway, while I'm in Detroit, I want to do some research while I'm there. And this is the first time I've really been able to take that opportunity. I grew up in Detroit, so I know the city pretty well, but I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to go up there during writing Rampage on the River for the parts that I did in that book. So I'm excited about doing that. So hopefully the French Fiasco comes out by March. Hopefully the novella comes out, I don't know, 6 months later. So by the end of the summer, early fall. and then we'll start writing Black James. And got a lot of books to write. So whatever is affecting me, it better not kill me because I've got a lot of work to do. All right, I love you guys. Have a great Sunday. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon. Like I said, I'm going to try to do it once a week. All right. Here we go. End stream. Wow, my computer is so slow. There we go. End stream.